Well, it's a pleasure and an honor to introduce my friend and dear friend. I know for quite a while now, Dr. Carl Patrasso. Dr. Carl has been a licensed psychologist for what 30 plus
About
years,
34 years.
mainly in Scottsdale, Arizona.
Yes.
Why don't you tell the audience a little bit about your history and your background for a few minutes?
As I say, I've been in the Valley here for about 34 years, and I'm a licensed psychologist. And my educational background was in clinical psychology. But then I also started to work in the area of forensic psychology, and I worked for the Superior Court of Arizona for 20 plus years. Also did a little bit with the educational system in the Valley. But clinical psychology and forensic psychology have really been my emphasis. And now I do individual counseling and therapy as well. So that's kind of my background. I was originally from Chicago, raised in Chicago.
What part of Chicago?
I was born on the northwest side of Chicago, and we lived in a building where my grandparents, my dad's parents, owned a little bungalow right down the block, and they owned an apartment building. And I lived in the apartment building that was rented by all my aunts and uncles. So I grew
Old
up
school.
with all my aunts and uncles and cousins. It was
That's
a great
nice.
way to grow up.
Oh yeah, yeah. I miss those days. But I hope you don't mind. I love New York cups here today for coffee.
Fantastic.
We do a little French press here. I think we
Nice.
already made a pot in the studio.
Thank you. And thank you, Frank, for having me on the show. I really appreciate that.
Oh, yeah. Pleasure's all mine. I did some homework, and I want to bounce some questions off you that I was always intrigued about. So I've been through quite a salute. I've been through quite a
Salud.
bit of therapy myself because I think mental health is very important. And going through therapy in different aspects of my life, and then going through intensive therapy. There was a place in Old Town. Well, it's near Old Town. It's called CPS. I don't know if I'm sure you heard of the place. The place is supposed to be like a internationally known place where you go and they have all these psychologists and psychiatrists and all these professionals in different buildings. It was from 7 in the morning till 7 at night. And they keep everybody's privacy. So you go under your initials. You're not supposed to know who's who. But eventually you figure out, you have to spend so much time with somebody. And you go from room to room and you learn all these different aspects of, trauma and psychotherapy and, all this stuff, how do you approach things. Well, I've been through it twice, actually. Once by myself and then second time I went with a couples intensive when me and my ex were trying to work things out. But not to get into all of that, back to you growing up in Chicago with your family. You had I think he was your uncle, was a very accomplished and famous actor, Dennis Farina. Am I saying it
Yeah,
correctly?
my uncle was Dennis Farina. We were 3 years apart in age. And so we actually kind of grew up together.
Is that him?
That's him.
Yeah, see, this studio here, we have a lot of very talented people here, right? And I got to be careful what to say. Well, it's a good thing they did it. Like right away, as soon as you say something, they'll come up with it. But that's a very nice
It's a
picture.
great picture. It's a great picture of him, and it really captures him. He's just a good guy, and he played rough guy parts, but he was a great uncle. I can say that.
In personal
But again,
life.
we grew up, 3 years apart, so we were close in that sense.
Right. So when you were hanging out with him, it wasn't more like a famous celebrity hanging out with his nephew.
No,
It
it's
was
Uncle
more,
Dennis. It was me and Uncle Dennis, and sometimes I'd go visit him in Beverly Hills and whatnot, and we would just hang out and we talk about family stuff. One of the big things about losing him, because he died young, is that he was the only connection that I had to the family traditions and stories. Because we were so close in age, he remembers my grandparents. He remembers all the old family stories. When he was gone, there's really no one that I can share or that has the same experience that I have of my grandparents and of family stories. So that was a big loss for me.
So I'm sorry to hear that, but so he kept it together pretty much.
Yes, he was. He was the person who kept the family. Even if different members of the family lost track with one another, he never lost track of all the different members of the family. So it was great.
And he lived here in Scottsdale, right?
He lived in Scottsdale and Chicago, but I must say, in honor to his memory, he was a Chicagoan.
All the way.
That was his home. That's what he was. And he had a second place here, which he loved. But Chicago was really his kind of town.
I lived in Chicago too for about a year. Loved it. Loved the people.
Mm-hmm.
What I liked with the restaurants is that every steakhouse was like an Italian steakhouse. Like they would have the steak menu, but then on the side they would have like the staples. Like you got a good marinara sauce, a meat sauce. You had all the sauces and some pastas in every steakhouse, mostly all of them,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, strong family-orientated community out there.
Great Italian community in Chicago. And Chicagoans are friendly people by nature. They're
Midwest.
Yeah, they're the Midwest, and it's very easy to be there and get to know the people.
One of the movies in particular that your uncle stands out to me right away is The Thief with James Caan, right? And I got to say, it's one of my favorite movies of all time. And, everybody, well, he did a lot of movies. I mean, the list goes on and on.
Great film with him and Bette Midler. I think that blue, let's see, what was it? Well, he did Snatch, Striking Distance, Get Shorty, Midnight Run. He had a series, Crime Story, which really Michael Mann was his mentor in terms of getting him started. I think it was Big Trouble with Bette Midler, it's a great film. It's one of those films that it's kind of like Cary Grant and Audrey Hepburn or a James Stewart. It's a romantic comedy. And you don't really see that anymore. And it's just a great film if you ever get a chance to see that movie.
The Thief is how he got his break, right?
Yes, it's a kind of an interesting story. My uncle his goal in life was to be a Chicago cop. That's what he wanted to be. And he became a Chicago cop and was very happy with that for about 16 years. And then one day...
So he was actually a cop for 16 years?
Yeah, he was a Chicago cop for 16 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And at that time, a couple of times I was able to ride with them. At that time, they had unmarked cars, and the cops dressed as civilians. That I'm going into the 60s and the 70s now. And so they drove around in an unmarked car, dressed as civilians. And then basically they would see what was going on in the streets, and they would get calls to go to places, or they would check places out if it looked like maybe there was something happening there.
So then from there, he gets discovered?
Well, from there, Michael Mann came into town with Shooting Thief, and he put up a thing on the bulletin board. He was looking for a person that looked like a character to do the end of the film. And the role of this character was to be the hitman for James Caan, to come out of the bushes with a gun and shoot James Caan. Well, my uncle really just out of interest, he never intended to be an actor, that was never a life goal. His life goal was to be a cop. Signed up for it out of fun, went there. Michael Mann liked him, put him in that role, and then Michael Mann said, well, if you're interested, I'll sponsor you. if you're interested in acting. And that's where he kind of got the acting bug. Many people don't realize my uncle for 5 or 6 years did like theater in Chicago, little theater. They'd have theaters that were like storefront converted into a theater, and they do plays there, did different parts of the city. And he would be a cop by day, and then he'd be an actor by night.
Wow.
And he did that for, as I say, 5 or 6 years. And then Michael Mann had a hit, Miami Vice, which was a huge hit.
Yeah.
It was very stylized. It had a certain style. And that's really what put it over. And he wanted to do another show that would also be stylized. And he put my uncle in. It's called Crime Story. In fact, I watched one the other night on YouTube. And that's he starred him in Crime Story, and then that really kicked off the career.
So obviously you had a passion for acting, because to go, a cop during the day and then go to act at night, you had to have a passion for it.
Yes, definitely. He loved acting. I mean, once he got into acting, he absolutely loved acting.
I remember now, all growing up, he's a very familiar face, in a lot of movies and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Back to the thief, I don't know exactly who. I know people are going to fact check me because they do it all the time. And these trolls are just, they become very annoying sometimes because they want to call you out on things. And they don't even know what they're talking about. They just want to be annoying. But who was the thief actually depicted of? It was an actual guy from Chicago?
I don't know that. I'm not sure. It's been a while since I've watched it. I know the plot is that James Caan makes a deal with the outfit to do this job. But then when it comes time for the money to be split up or something, there's a disagreement. And so James Caan starts to put pressure on his outfit connection. And it's at that point that they decide to take him out, and my uncle's the hitman. So here's a guy who's a Chicago cop playing the part of a hitman.
A complete 180, right?
Yes.
Every neighborhood thought that, one of the famous thieves that we had in our neighborhood was Jimmy Red, they called him. His real last name was Caserta. There he is to the right. Jimmy Red was a legendary guy from the neighborhood. Legendary in a sense that he was a known thief, like the thief in the movie you see, James Caan. Did a lot of big scores. Eventually became a maid guy with the Genovese family. Was a very ballsy guy. I talk about him. I know him very well because he dated my grandmother after my grandfather passed away. He actually married my grandmother, before he passed away. So I don't want to say he was my grandfather, but, whatever. He did a lot of time in prison. He was in and out of jail. There was one incident where, this is the type of guy he was. My cousin Alex Black Morelli was a maid guy with the Genovese family who was under Pete DeFeo. I talk about them from time to time. Pete DeFeo was an old-time captain with the Genovese family. Goes back to Lucky Luciano and the original, creators of Five Families. There was a Chinese gang from Chinatown that opened up a club on Mott Street between Spring and Prince. Now, Mott Street was Chinatown, but more towards past Canal Street. So for them to come into the Italian side of Mott Street was a big deal. They opened up a little social club. Alex went in there to go talk to them to say, hey, you can't do this. They told him to go pound sand. And then he was telling Jimmy Red about it. Jimmy Red didn't even say anything. He just got 2 guns, went around the corner, kicked the door open, and just started shooting everybody. And they never got to stay in that club or open the club. I don't know what happened to the Chinese guys. I don't know if they died, they didn't die. I don't know how many guys got shot, but I know a lot of people got shot. So Jimmy was that type of guy. He was eventually, a cop killed him. He was tough and wild without drinking, but when he did have a drink, he was 10 times worse.
Oh, boy.
One of those guys.
Wow.
give me a Heineken, I'll fight Germany, right?
Yeah. Wow.
So he was in a bar in Staten Island somewhere. It should be, you could Google it, the incident that happened. He was drinking, and he got into an argument with an undercover detective or whoever it was.
Oh.
I don't know, it escalated into him challenging him to get a gun or whatnot, and the cop killed him.